Welcome to Old School Epics. My name's Will, and this channel is dedicated to chronicling the stories that emerge from solo play adventures within the Old School Essentials advanced fantasy role-playing game by Necrotic Gnome. No, I don't normally talk like this, but yes, this is my actual voice. I've just gussied it all up to try and sound, well, narratory and audiobooky. Since I clearly have some work to do on my voiceover game, I'm pleased to announce that the story you're about to hear will instead be read for you by professional narrator and talented voice actress Janine Howe. It's been a pleasure working with Janine, and I hope you enjoy listening to her tell this tale as much as I do. If you'd like to skip this foreword and get straight to Janine and the story, click Introduction in the index below. The story is a tale of the adventure 5 player characters had during their exploration of the Jeweler's Sanctum, a fantastic first-level dungeon by Giuseppe Rotondo, whose name I hope I'm not mispronouncing. The format is similar to an actual play podcast, but without mechanics or table talk. Basically, I refereed and played the entire adventure per the rules of OSE, and then chronicled what happened into the story you're about to hear. The tale is told in the turn-by-turn format in which it was played, preceded by a brief introduction to the adventure and the player characters. The whole thing runs just shy of 2 hours. I'll make sure to post an index of the turns below so that you can leave and come back to where you left off if you like. While the story is, of course, intended to be heard and not watched, there are a couple of advantages to sharing it on YouTube. The first advantage is that I can share screenshots from the virtual tabletop and map for each turn so that you can reference them if my descriptions of play become confusing. I used Owlbear Rodeo as my VTT and Incarnate to make the map. The tokens I used to represent the characters on their character sheets are by Greg Bruni. You can find them at gregbrunicreations.com. The second advantage is that I can share a few pieces I commissioned from talented artist Yuri Perkowski-Domingos. Yuri's work is well known in the OSR, and he's my favorite artist for capturing the feeling of old-school role-playing games. Yuri also designed my little logo. He can be found on X and Instagram, and at ArtStation, as well as Itch. Since I don't recommend staring at your computer screen while listening, I'll play a chime sound, like this. Whenever one of Yuri's illustrations comes up so you can check it out if you'd like. In terms of what to expect, we're not talking about advanced literature here. We're not even talking about advanced fantasy literature. We're more on the young adult meets weird tales tier. The inspiration for all of this was, initially at least, to imitate the fairly generic examples of play found in the introductory sections of many tabletop role-playing games. Anyone who's ever read an example of play for, say, Dungeons and Dragons, and then actually played the game knows well that the two experiences are entirely dissimilar. Still, the generic example of play style is, to my mind, attractive for highlighting the design of the game and the adventures published for it, unaffected by the amusing chaos that unfolds when you throw us humans into the mix in real time. In any event, I'd say that this story starts out a little on the dry side as I describe the various distances and objects in the dungeon as a referee does for his players. But as the game progresses, the characters and story take on a life of their own, and, in your humble chronicler's opinion, things get really interesting by the end. There are 2 final thoughts I'd like to share before the story begins. The first is that, of course, this story represents an in-depth playthrough of the Jeweler's Sanctum and is filled with spoilers. The Jeweler's Sanctum can be fairly characterized as an introductory dungeon, though its creator, Giuseppe Rotondo, doesn't call it that explicitly. I have some experience dungeon mastering all sorts of published adventures from the original TSR era through whatever unnamed era we find ourselves in now. I've refereed the Jeweler's Sanctum once for this solo play adventure, and once for my regular group of 8 players. Having done so, I believe it to be the single best introductory adventure I've ever run or played. So, if you'd like to try it out first as a player, you probably ought to stop here. On the other hand, if you'd like to referee it, listening to this story may be helpful in a walkthrough sort of way. The second thought is that I'm only almost completely confident as to the course this chronicle treads among the murky puddles of licensing and copyright. To be sure, actual play podcasts are certainly fair use and intended to benefit the creators of tabletop role-playing games by calling positive attention to those games, but this is an actual play story put in narrative form. While the descriptions of what occurs in the adventure itself are mine, there are, of course, snippets throughout in which I quote some of the descriptions of the dungeon as written. That's because I refereed the adventure and, therefore, describe the parts of the dungeon as a referee does, which includes reading room and monster descriptions as the dungeon's author has written them. Fortunately, modern OSR-style adventures are written largely in bullet format, providing concise notes as opposed to boxed text. I keep these references as concise as possible, but avoid putting quotation marks around them, because that would sound really weird. With all of that said, I hope you enjoy this little epic. It's my first attempt at sharing such a story publicly, and there's something about stories that prevents them from, for want of a better term, actualizing until they're shared with others. While I hope the story doesn't fall flat, the adventure itself was a lot of fun to referee, play, and describe. I think it really showcases the unique beauty of the organic stories that can emerge only from tabletop role-playing games. If you'd like to run The Jeweler's Sanctum, it's published in Adventure Anthology 1. I'll put links to everything below. So, with the help of Janine and as Akiro the Wizard might say, now, let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Adventure 1. The Jeweler's Sanctum. A solo play chronicle for the Old School Essentials advanced fantasy role-playing game by Necrotic Gnome. A venture by Giuseppe Rotondo, as published in Adventure Anthology 1. Described and edited by William O'Bredesley. Reading and audio editing by Janine Howe. Prologue. Excerpt by Giuseppe Rotondo, Adventure Anthology 1. Jesem, grandson of the renowned jeweler-magician Draxus, is troubled by inexplicable sounds from his grandfather's sealed laboratory below the old family mansion. Scratching, squeaking, giggling, screaming, even a humming tune. He has posted a notice seeking adventurers to enter the laboratory and clear out the lingering dangers. As the family's fortune has been depleted, Jesem can offer no reward, but will allow explorers to keep any treasures they find in the laboratory. He believes it still contains piles of gold ingots and precious stones, in addition to deadly traps and magical guardians placed to deter thieves. 3 days ago, a dwarf named Oric ventured inside. After about an hour, he screamed, didn't answer Jesem's calls, and never re-emerged. Player characters. All 5 characters have responded to Jesem's notice, but each has their own reason for doing so. None of them had met each other until this morning, the day of the adventure. Angharad, the medium. First level, neutral elf, magic user. Female. Young. Beautiful. Graceful. And otherworldly. Golden hair and emerald eyes. Wears embroidered green robes. Carries a quarterstaff. Fragile. Will avoid combat when possible. Can only cast 1 spell per day. Has memorized Detect Magic. Aloof. Austere. Curious. And intelligent. An energetic scholar who wants to learn secrets and grow her powers as a magic user. Came here because she believes the laboratory might have spell scrolls or other magic she can learn. Retained Torosh the Hunter this morning to protect her while she explores. Elwyn the Acolyte. First level, lawful, human cleric. Female. 18 years old. Athletic, pretty and youthful. Black hair and silver eyes. Wears chainmail armour and tartan skirts. Carries a mace and a shield. will avoid combat unless necessary, wants to heal instead of harm, cannot cast spells until she is promoted to the title of adept, charismatic, naive, meditative, and pious, an initiate in the divine order of law who hopes to prove herself to her deity, sent here by her temple elders to investigate the laboratory, accompanied by Eoin the Squire. Eoin the Squire, first level, lawful, human knight, male, 20 years old, athletic, slender, and straight-backed, copper hair and hazel eyes, wears plate mail armor, carries a sword and a shield, defensive fighter, uses his natural dexterity, armor, and shield to his advantage, brave, disciplined, gentle, and honorable, a humble squire who hopes to earn knighthood, sent here by his liege lord to protect Elwyn. He will defend her at all costs. Yuri the Apprentice, first level, neutral dwarf, thief, male, young, nimble, slender for a dwarf and wiry, black hair and beard and dark eyes, wears leather armor and a hooded cloak, carries a crossbow and a dagger, clever fighter, will attack from range or try to backstab enemies, measured, professional, prudent, and reliable. A dungeoneer who wants to master his craft as a thief, here to find his missing cousin, Oric. Torosh the Hunter, first level neutral human barbarian, male, 21 years old, bull-necked, lean, and powerful, chestnut hair and blue eyes, wears a scale mail hauberk and a horned helmet with one cracked horn, carries a sword, a hide shield, and 2 javelins, aggressive fighter, prefers throwing his javelins and then charging into combat, masculine, instinctive, vital, and superstitious, a mercenary who wants to see the world, lives in the moment, and never breaks his word, retained by Angharad this morning to protect her while she explores. Turn 0. The characters are gathered in Jessem's cellar. It is roughly 30 feet squared. Stairs in the northeastern corner ascend to the main level. Stacked barrels of wine and salted fish line the southern wall. Cobwebbed, empty jewellery cases fill the rest of the room. There is a locked iron door at the northern end of the eastern wall, engraved with a spider draped in rings and bejewelled necklaces. "Thank you all for coming," Jessem anxiously addresses the adventurers. "This place has been nothing but trouble since my grandfather's passing. May the gods go with you." With that, he hands the key to Elwyn. The acolyte accepts it with a dutiful nod and shining silver eyes. "Before we proceed," she says to the group, "let's decide on our marching order and make sure we're prepared. We should light a torch or lantern so we can all see clearly." Eoin steps forward, straight-backed and solemn. "I'll take the front," he volunteers. "I can shield us from any direct assault, and my armour should provide good protection." "I'll scout ahead," says Yuri. "I'll move quietly to detect any traps or ambushes. I can see in the dark, so I've no need for light." "I'll be in the middle," says Angharad. "I need to avoid combat, if possible." Torosh nods at this, taking up his position in front of the elf maiden. Elwyn smiles appreciatively. "I'll carry the lantern and be right behind Angharad." She inserts the key into the graven door, unlocks it, and gently pushes it open. With the rough order established, Eoin lights a lantern and hands it to Elwyn. Yuri takes his position at the front, followed by Eoin, Torosh, Angharad, and finally Elwyn with the lantern. Turn 1. The door opens to reveal a dank hallway about 10 feet wide, running south to the party's left. While the others wait at the door, Yuri disappears into the darkness. The corridor continues south for about 45 feet before turning east. 20 feet thereafter, the dwarf comes to a black stone archway embossed with the face of a smiling old man. Yuri pauses there until the others come down the southbound hallway to the corner and peer at him through the soft glow of Elwyn's lantern. The wiry thief signals back to the group, halting them while he inspects the archway. Turn 2. The dwarf carefully examines the stone archway, inspecting it for traps and hidden mechanisms. Finding none, he turns back to the group and beckons them forward. Turn 3. The party proceeds through the archway without incident, Yari staying just out of the lantern light so that it doesn't interfere with his vision. The corridor continues east for another 30 feet before turning north. 20 feet up this corridor is another archway just like the first one, black stone embossed with the face of a smiling old man. The others follow and again wait at the corner where the hallway turns north, while Yari inspects the archway for traps. Uncomfortable following a civilized man into potential danger, Torosh takes this opportunity to move up and stand next to Ioan. Turn 4. Yari inspects the second archway for traps, discovering none. He signals for the others to follow. Turn 5. The hallway continues north for another 30 feet or so before turning west. Yari reckons that the 3 turns so far mean the corridor has wrapped around the cellar where they started, and that the cellar is now to the south on the other side of the wall. He proceeds about 20 feet westward before arriving at yet another archway. This one is like the others, except that it is made of white stone. The rest of the party gathers again at the corner, about 30 feet behind Yari. Turn 6. Rest turn. Concerned about the change in stonework at this third archway, the dwarf decides to return to the group. "Ahead is a third archway," he tells them. "But this one is made of white stone, unlike the black stone ones we've seen so far." "White stone," muses Angharad. "That's unusual. It could signify a change in the type of traps or magic, perhaps. It might also mark a boundary or a special area within the laboratory," adds Elwyn. "Whatever it means," considers Ioan, "we need to stay alert. Changes like this often indicate something significant. Do you sense any magic, Angharad?" "Not so far," answers Angharad, "but I could use my spell to check if there's any magical presence near the white archway." After a few moments, Yari stands up. "I'll check it for traps as well," he says after a pull from his wineskin. "It's better to be safe, especially with these changes in the corridor." Angharad decides against using her spell for now. "I think it's best to save my spell for a more critical moment," she concludes. "Let's see what Yari finds first." Turn 7. Yari carefully approaches the white stone archway and inspects it for traps, finding none. Turn 8. The party proceeds safely through the white archway. Roughly 30 feet west down the hallway, Yari comes to a patterned section of the floor. It's about 10 feet squared and checkered in black and white tiles, roughly 2 feet squared each. There is a pair of 4-foot-long horizontal slits about 3 feet above floor level in the walls on either side, and dried blood on the stonework. On the far side, there is a door in the southern wall. 10 feet past that door is another checkered pattern. The party uses Elwyn's shield to test the black tiles. Doing so triggers no traps. Turn 9. The others carefully follow Yari across the pattern, stepping only on the black tiles. They make it across safely and are now bunched up together in the 10-foot space between the pattern they've just crossed and the one to the west of it. The door on the southern wall is closed. Ioan looks around at their confined space. "We're a bit cramped here," he says with a glance at the door. "We should decide if we want to check that door or move past the next pattern." "I'll inspect the door for traps before we decide," says Yari. "We need to be thorough." Yari does not find any traps on the door. Angharad presses her ear to it and detects no sounds. Ioan steps forward, gently pushing the door open while keeping his shield and sword at the ready. Each adventurer tenses, preparing to face whatever might lie beyond. Turn 10. A fetid stench assails the party as the door opens to what appears to be a ransacked bedroom, roughly 30 feet squared. The floor is littered with giant rat droppings. A bed, rags, and furniture lie about, broken and dirty. Yari, Ioan, and Torosh enter carefully and spread out to search the room. Angharad stays near the door. "Be quick," she says, looking around with distaste. "This place is revolting." Elwyn stands beside her, holding the lantern so the others can see. Yuri searches for hidden compartments and passages, while his companions keep an eye out for any signs of danger or useful items amidst the mess. While searching, they surprise a trio of giant rats, each the size of a small dog, nesting under the bed. "Vermin!" shouts Johan, raising his sword and shield. Torosh is already moving, readying a javelin to throw at one of the rats. Yuri raises his crossbow, aiming at another rat. Combat. Surprise round. Party wins surprise. "They're quick," curses Johan under his breath as a rat scurries away from his swing. "Stay on guard." Torosh, his javelin missing its mark and slamming into the rotting bed, readies his second javelin. Yuri scores the first kill with his crossbow. "One down, 2 to go," he declares while loading a new bolt. "Let's finish this." Angharad watches the scene unfold, staying back but ready to help if necessary. "Stay together," encourages Elwyn, stepping forward with her mace ready. "We can handle this." Combat, round 1. Torosh's second javelin scores, killing a rat. Johan's blade connects with the final rat, killing it and ending the row. "That's the last of them," he breathes, looking about. "Well done, everyone." "Aye," agrees Yuri, lowering his crossbow and scanning the room for any more threats. "Let's finish checking the room and then decide our next move." Angharad relaxes slightly. "That was a nasty surprise," she says. "Let's be hasty." "I'll help search," volunteers Elwyn as she steps forward with the lantern. "Let's make sure there's nothing else lurking around." Turn 11. The group resumes their search of the ransacked bedroom, with the threat of the giant rats now eliminated. Yuri discovers a small hole in the southern wall. "It looks like the rats have been using tunnels to move about," he observes. "Too small for us to crawl through, though." Torosh finds a book under the bed and delivers it to Angharad. The elven magic user carefully dusts off the cover, reading the title aloud. Morland's Marvellous Magic. She stores the book in her backpack for later examination. Turn 12. Rest turn. The group finds spots of relative cleanliness in the room to rest. Elwyn and Angharad keep watch while the others take a few moments to recover. Turn 13. The party returns to the hallway. The second checkered pattern looks like the first, 10 feet squared, with black and white tiles, 2 feet squared each. The burnt carcass of a rat lies on a white tile. "The colours of the archways we've passed could correspond to traps in these patterns," reasons Angharad. "The first 2 black archways may indicate that the black tiles are safe. The white archway might be a warning that something different could be ahead, but for now, it seems consistent that the black tiles are safe." "Let's proceed carefully," agrees Elwyn. "Just like before. We'll stick to the black tiles and stay vigilant." Yuri crosses first, stepping only on the black tiles, without triggering any traps. Directly to the west, about 10 feet away, is a third checkered pattern. It's like the first 2, except that it reeks of vinegar and is covered in a light coating of green dust. To Yuri's right, there is an open door in the northern wall. Peering through, the dwarf can see a large room. Hefty bookcases line the north and east walls. Books and scrolls, shredded and illegible, are scattered on the floor. There is an ornate desk and a leather-upholstered chair, carved with spider-like legs, in the middle of the room. The place appears to be a ruined study or library. Turn 14. The party decides to investigate the room rather than risk the third pattern. The room is quite large, roughly 55 feet east to west and 25 feet north to south. There is a door in the middle of the western wall, and 2 tunnels, similar to the one Yuri found in the ransacked bedroom to the south. As she is searching one of the tables, Elwyn disturbs 4 giant centipedes, each the size of an adult viper, chewing on paper. Giant centipedes! Gasps the shocked acolyte, quickly stepping back and raising her shield. Ioan immediately moves to protect Elwyn, drawing his sword and positioning himself between her and the monsters. Angharad steps back, avoiding the confrontation, but keeps her staff ready in case she needs to defend herself. "Be careful," she shouts. "Their bites could be venomous." The group prepares to engage the centipedes, with Ioan and Torosh taking the front line to attack, while Yari aims his crossbow, ready to shoot any centipede that comes too close. Elwyn stays nearby, poised in defensive posture. Angharad keeps a safe distance, watching the battle and ready to help if necessary. Combat. Round 1. Ioan swings his sword at the nearest centipede, but the quick creature darts out of the way. A moment later, the squire feels a sharp pain as one of the creatures bites him. Fortunately, his armour prevents it from injecting its venom. "It bit me, but I'm all right," he shouts. "Watch out for their poison." Torosh swings his sword, but his skittering target evades his attack. "Ipona's hooves," he growls, narrowly dodging a bite from another centipede. "These devils are fast." 2 more centipedes lunge at Ioan, but his shield and plate mail armour protect him from their bites. Yari aims his crossbow and fires a precise shot, killing the centipede that bit Ioan. "One down," declares the thief. "Keep at it, lads." "Stay close, everyone," encourages Elwyn, maintaining a defensive stance and prepared to fend off any attacks. "We can handle this." Combat. Round 2. The centipedes launch a frenzied attack. 2 target Ioan, but their bites cannot penetrate his armour and shield. In a swift counterattack, the squire shears one with his sword, killing it instantly. Another centipede bites Torosh on the thigh. He feels a sharp sting, but his bullish vitality protects him against its poison. "It'll take more than that to fell this ox," boasts the barbarian, before snatching up the offending arthropod and crushing it in his fist. Yari hastily reloads his crossbow, but misses his mark. His bolt shatters against the stone wall behind it. Combat. Round 3. Torosh lunges at the remaining centipede. He grabs it with both hands and, with a savage grunt, tears it in half. "Well done, Torosh," nods Ioan in approval, as he lowers his sword. "Let us hope there are not any more of these around." Yari relaxes slightly. "Aye, fair play," he says, slowly shouldering his crossbow. "Let's continue our search and see if we can find anything useful in this room." Turn 15. A thorough search of the rest of the library turns up nothing but mouldering scrolls of no clear value. "What about that door?" says Torosh, pointing to the closed portal in the western wall. "We haven't checked it yet." The group moves toward the door, with Yari taking the lead to inspect it for any signs of traps or mechanisms. He discovers none. Turn 16. Ioan carefully opens the door to reveal a large, ruined alchemical lab, 50 feet north to south and 30 feet east to west. There is a door in the southern wall that presumably leads back to the hallway. The floor is cluttered with broken lab equipment, a workbench, cracked vials, and pots. A foul chemical smell hangs heavy in the air, and 3 giant rat carcasses lay sprawled amid heaps of multicoloured powders. A purple cloak hangs on a coat rack, covered in a dusty ochre. Angharad eyes the cloak. "This might be of interest, though it's covered in some kind of growth. Let me take a closer look. The ochre could be some kind of mould, or alchemical residue." The magic user's ginger inspection of the cloak reveals that the ochre is yellow mould. She knows from her studies that yellow mould is a deadly fungus, capable of releasing spores that can kill if inhaled. However, the elf maiden is able to carefully turn the cloak inside out without releasing any spores. In a hidden pocket on the inside, now outside of the cloak, is a magical scroll and a jade medallion engraved with the letter D. Angharad carefully stores both items in her backpack. Turn 17. Finding nothing else of value, The party exits the ruined laboratory through the southern door, which re-enters the main passage. To the east, the party's left, the third checkered pattern lies about 20 feet away, so the party has circumvented it through the library and laboratory. The hallway travels west of the door to the party's right, and appears to open into a large area to the north. Across the hallway to the south is an open portal to another room. The group elects to explore this area. This chamber is 30 feet north to south and 60 feet east to west. It looks to have once been a large parlour of some kind. There is a door in the middle of the eastern wall. A strange scene is set in the centre of the room. An enormous female rat lounges on a dusty sofa, wearing a makeshift crown of copper wire. She is fully 4 feet long and covered in silver-streaked fur. She has a golden bracelet on her wrist, which may have been a human's ring at some point. 5 giant rats, about 3 feet long each, stand at attention around her like royal guards. An ornate golden bowl rests beside her, filled with gnawed bones of unknown origin. In a stunning turn of events that drops the jaw of each adventurer, she speaks.
"Greetings, visitors. I am Skeeks, Queen of Rats. Welcome to my royal chamber."
After a long moment of stunned silence, it is Ioan who steps forward cautiously, his hand resting on his sword's hilt, but not drawing it. "Greetings, Queen Skeeks." He bows slightly, trying to appear respectful despite the oddity of the situation. "We mean no harm, and seek passage through your, kingdom. We are on a quest." Torosh beholds the scene with a bewildered glare and coiled muscles. Yari observes the room, noting the golden bowl and the makeshift crown. He keeps his crossbow ready but lowered. Elwyn stays close to the group, keeping the lantern steady to illuminate the room. Angharad stays by the door, her nose crinkled in poorly concealed disgust. The Rat Queen eyes the group intently for a moment, her nose twitching as if sniffing them from a distance. Finally, her eyes alight on Yari.
"Well met, dwarf. What brings you to my domain?"
Yari steps forward awkwardly. "Your Majesty," he begins, clearing his throat. "I am here seeking my cousin Auric. He ventured into these halls some days ago and never returned. If you have any information as to his whereabouts or fate, it would be of immense help to me." After a long pause, Skeeks replies.
"Alas, I will have to consult with my trusted scouts."
Her glossy black eyes next move to Elwyn.
"And you, dark-haired girl, what brings you here?"
The young cleric steps forward with the ceremonial elegance of one well trained in formal rite. "I am Elwyn, an acolyte of law. I have been sent by my holy order to investigate these dungeons, known to men as the Jeweler's Sanctum. We hope to uncover its secrets and ensure that any dangers within are made safe. Our aim is to bring peace and order to these halls." Queen Skeeks appears ready to speak, when one of her queen's guards whispers in her ear. Thereafter she says,
"I am told you have slain 3 of my subjects in the ruined bedroom east of here, while they slept no less. Is this true?"
Ioan responds, his tone formal. "Your Majesty, it is true that we encountered and fought 3 giant rats in the ruined bedroom. We did not know that they were your subjects. We accidentally disturbed them, and a battle ensued. We regret the transgression." After due consideration, Queen Skeeks responds,
"I will accept an offer of food for my subjects as atonement. My people especially enjoy the fresh and iron rations humans are known to carry."
Her whiskers and those of her guards dance excitedly. Following some discussion, each of the adventurers chooses to share 1 ration. This gesture compels Queen Skeeks to declare a feast, to which she summons all sorts of rats. Before they know it, the adventurers are partaking in a vermin's imitation of what they believe human nobles do at a royal banquet. Turn 18, Rest turn. During the ensuing conversations, Skeeks takes particular interest in Angharad, informing the elf that she is very intrigued by magic and wants to learn it. Angharad, who has been exercising all her elven nobility to disguise her revulsion at the entire situation, listens attentively to the rat. She smiles warmly, trying to steer the dialogue in a direction that avoids further discussion of magic. In another conversation, with Elwyn, Queen Skeeks offers a truce with her rats. She declares that, if the party has any jewellery to share, she could be persuaded to ensure her loyal subjects do not further harass the adventurers. After quiet deliberation, the party elects to make an offering of the jade medallion Angharad discovered in the ruined laboratory. Queen Skeeks accepts this gift and assures the group they will face no further trouble from her rats. She also says that, should the group bring her other treasures from farther within the dungeon, she might use the wealth to lead her subjects out of the jeweler's sanctum altogether. This is a proposition that would very much please Jessem, the adventurers silently note. As a gesture of goodwill, Queen Skeeks offers the party 2 cryptic secrets. First, she tells them to beware the pool of killer bubbles. Second, she says that the singing spider can't leave her room. Without further elaboration, she sends the adventurers on their way. The group decides to quickly exit through the door in the eastern wall and end this truly bizarre interlude. Turn 19. The door opens to a room about 30 feet squared. There is another door in the middle of the northern wall, which, assumably, opens to the main corridor. The room is littered with metal and wooden cages of all sizes, holding the skeletal remains of bizarre creatures, sturges, a 2-headed snake, an owlbear cub, and a goat with 7 horns. In one cage there is a framed mirror. "These creatures must have been part of some experiment or collection," Yari muses aloud. "Look, there's a mirror in one of the cages." Angharad nods. "The mirror might be of interest. Mirrors often have magical properties or purposes. We should examine it carefully." She steps forward, her curiosity piqued. She carefully examines the mirror, looking for any inscriptions, runes, or signs of enchantment. She also checks her reflection to note any changes or unusual effects. However, the magic user does not see her reflection at all. Rather, she sees the image of a tall, gaunt man with bedraggled red hair and deranged blue eyes. He looks to be mad, giggling and babbling maniacally. Angharad gasps softly, her eyes widening in surprise. She takes a step back, keeping her composure, but is clearly disturbed by what she has seen. "This is no ordinary mirror. I see a man, a tall man with red hair and manic eyes. He's giggling and jabbering madly. This mirror is showing me something, or someone else entirely." Elwyn steps closer. "A vision in the mirror?" she asks, concern evident in her voice. "What do you think it means, Angharad?" "Could it be a trap, or a warning?" asks Eoin, tightening his grip on his sword. Torosh's heathen instincts demand he be wary. "Madmen and magic don't mix well," he growls. The man seems to see Angharad. He begins to wave his arms pleadingly like a marooned survivor on an island who spots a passing ship. He does not appear to be armed. "He sees me," Angharad says. "He's waving his arms, pleading for help, it seems. This might be a call for aid rather than a threat." "If he's pleading for help, he might be trapped somehow," adds Elwyn. "We should try to understand his situation better." "It's worth investigating, but with caution," says Yari. "Angharad, see if you can get any information from him." Angharad turns back to the mirror and focuses on the man's image, trying to speak as clearly as she can. "Can you hear me? Who are you? And what is your situation? How can we help you?" While the man appears close to the adventurers, It seems that, from his perspective, the adventurers are too far away for him to see clearly or hear at all. This inability to communicate frustrates him for some time. Then it looks like a thought strikes him. He reaches inside his robes and retrieves a jade medallion with the letter D engraved on it. It matches the one the party found in the ruined laboratory. He uses it to scratch the letters N, A, L, R, O, and M on the glass. The N, L, and R are backwards. Angharad watches the man's actions closely, her emerald eyes narrowing as he scratches the letters on the glass. She reads the letters aloud to the group as he writes them. N, A, L, R, O, M. Nelrum, repeats Yari. If he's writing them backwards to try and account for the mirror, that's Morlun. Morlun's marvellous magic, shouts Elwyn excitedly. It could be the same person. He might be the author or someone connected to the book. If this man is indeed Morlun, he might have valuable knowledge or be able to help us, comments Angharad. We should consult the book and see if it contains any information on mirrors or how to free someone trapped in one. The group gathers around Angharad as she retrieves the book from her pack. Inside are 2 spells. One is Light, which Angharad knows how to cast, and the other is Sleep, which she recognizes but does not know how to cast. When the man sees the book, he begins jumping up and down excitedly, grinning and clapping his hands together. He then begins making a frantic throwing motion with his arms. Then he switches to making a hammer motion. Angharad watches the man's frantic gestures. Wait, it looks like he's mimicking throwing, hammering and breaking. Perhaps he wants us to break the mirror. Breaking the mirror? Asks Eoin, concerned. That could be risky. What if it's a trap? If we break the mirror, we should make sure everyone is prepared for whatever might happen, says Elwyn. Yari scratches his beard. I'll stand ready with my crossbow, he agrees. If something dangerous happens, we'll need to react quickly. All right, says Angharad. Let's give it a try, but proceed with caution. Turn 20. Eoin draws his sword and positions himself in front of the mirror. He raises the blade, ready to strike, and looks at the others to ensure they are prepared. Everyone ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. He swings his sword at the mirror. The glass explodes violently, and the man spills out onto the floor like a fish from a shattered aquarium. He flails around for a time, whimpering, "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you," as he clutches the hem of Angharad's robes in delirious gratitude. Angharad retreats slightly, taken aback by the man's sudden manifestation and his frantic pleadings. She gently tries to calm him, her voice soothing. "It's all right. You're safe now. Take a moment to collect yourself." Elwyn kneels beside the man, offering comfort. "You're safe now. Can you tell us your name and what happened to you?" The man's eyes are frantic for a while. "I don't know." When his wild gaze alights on the book Angharad is holding, he reaches for it eagerly. The elf maiden sees the man's eyes light up with recognition as he reaches for the book. She holds it out to him but speaks firmly. "I understand that this book might be important to you, but we need to know more about who you are and what happened. There are only 2 spells in this book, Light and Sleep, and they are not very powerful. You cannot cast spells directly from it without memorizing them first." "Let's give him a moment," suggests Eoin. "He might remember more once he calms down." "It's all right," Elwyn says soothingly to the man. "Take your time. We're here to help you." "Yes," the man croaks in a hoarse whisper. That is my name on that book." Angharad nods, her expression softening. "So you are Morlun. It's good to finally know your name. How did you end up trapped in that mirror, Morlun?" Elwyn offers him a small flask of water. "Here, drink this. It will help soothe your throat." The group waits patiently, giving Morlun time to drink and gather his thoughts, ready to listen to his story and offer further aid. Morlun sips the water and asks, "Can I hold it? The book? It may help me remember." Angharad carefully hands the book to Morlun, keeping a close watch on him. "Of course, Morlun. Here is your book. Take your time and see if it helps you remember anything." Morlun opens the tome, but doesn't so much read it as hold it to his breast like a child recovering a lost pet. Slowly, his mutterings fade, and his demeanour calms. Turn 21. After an excruciating number of moments pass, he says, "I am Morlun the Seer. I was apprenticed to Draxus, lord of this sanctum. He imprisoned me in that mirror for my clumsiness. That was, I do not know, ages ago, maybe 60, 70 years? I lost track of time somewhere along the way." Angharad listens intently, her expression softening with empathy. "Morlun, you've been through so much. We're glad we could free you." "Imprisoned for 7 decades, Ioan considers out loud. "That's hard and cruel. We'll do what we can to help you now." "Thank you for sharing your story," says Elwyn gently. "We're here to assist you in any way we can." "Do you remember anything about this place?" asks Yari. "Is there anything that might help us navigate it safely?" Morlun looks at Yari as if noticing him for the first time. The seer's eyes brighten as recollection seems to strike him. I do. I can help you." He pulls the jade medallion from his neck and jubilantly hands it to Angharad. "Draxus' workshop is guarded by a pair of living statues. They will batter you all to a pulp unless you present them with this talisman." He's back to appearing half mad, though now there's an almost covetous look in his eyes. He begins giggling and stuttering. "You can use this medallion to bypass them and get to the magical treasures in the workshop." Angharad takes the medallion carefully, her eyes meeting Morlun's with gratitude. "Thank you, Morlun. This medallion will be invaluable. We appreciate your help." "Living statues," considers Ioan. "That sounds dangerous. It's good to know we have a way to bypass them." "Let's plan our next move," says Yari. "Morlun, can you tell us the best way to reach Draxus' workshop?" The seer struggles, as if trying to piece together memories. "Beyond the bubbling pool, He sighs, giving up. "I cannot. I am so hungry. Can you spare a morsel of food?" Angharad nods. "Of course, Morlun. We'll make sure you have something to eat." Elwyn hands Morlun one of her fresh rations. "Here, take this," she says softly. "It should help you regain some strength." "Let's go, everyone," says Angharad. "We have the medallion, and we know we need to find the bubbling pool." The group makes sure Morlun is comfortable before preparing to leave the room. They take one last look around to ensure they haven't missed anything, then step back into the hallway, ready to continue their journey. "We'll head toward the large area to the north," says Ioan. "Let's stay vigilant and look for any signs of this bubbling pool." Turn 22. With their new goal in mind, and the medallion in hand, the adventurers move forward cautiously, re-entering the main corridor through the northern door. The third checkered pattern lies to the east. The party travels west, passing the door to the ruined laboratory on their right, and Skeeks's chamber on their left. Turn 23. In another 20 feet, the hallway opens into a large chamber that smells faintly acrid, like smelted copper. The party enters from the southern end of its eastern wall. It is 30 feet wide, east to west, and extends farther to the north than Elwyn's lantern light or Yari's infravision can reach. 35 feet to the group's north is a large pool of murky water that extends into the darkness. There does not appear to be a way to walk around, as it takes up the entire width of the chamber. Occasional bubbles can be heard breaking on its surface. A cracked lantern and an axe lie on the southern bank between the water and the adventurers. "Remember, Queen Skeeks warned us about this pool," Angharad says, staring at the strange water. "She called it the pool of killer bubbles. We need to be extremely cautious." "Right," agrees Eoin with a nod. "We can't take any chances here. Let's see if we can find a safe way across or around it without disturbing the water." Torosh picks up the axe and examines it closely. "This axe," he says, holding it up for the others to see. "It looks artfully crafted. Yari, have a look." Yari steps closer, his eyes narrowing as he inspects the axe. "This is dwarven made. It could be oryx." "If this was oryx, he might have encountered something dangerous near the pool," speculates Eoin grimly. "The broken lantern and spilled oil suggest there might have been a struggle or some accident," adds Torosh. "The pool of killer bubbles could be even more dangerous than we thought," warns Angharad. "Let's think about how to proceed without disturbing the water." The pool runs the width of the chamber, east to west. When Elwyn approaches it with the lantern, the light reveals that it is about 20 feet from the southern edge to the northern edge. 10 feet past that is a stone wall running east to west with a door near its western end. The pool seems to be about 15 feet deep. The water is about a foot below the edge of the floor. It is clearly man-made, like a large rectangular swimming pool. There is a dead dwarf lying face down at the bottom. His clothes, backpack and plate armour are partially dissolved, and horrid wounds like scalds cover his flesh. Yari stares down at the lifeless form of the dwarf at the bottom of the pool, his usually composed demeanour faltering. He clenches his fists, his eyes narrowing with grief. "Oryk, damn it, I'm too late." He takes a deep breath, struggling to keep his composure. "I'm sorry, Yari," says Eoin gently, as he places a reassuring hand on the dwarf's shoulder. "You did everything you could to find him. We'll make sure his death wasn't in vain." Elwyn steps closer, her voice gentle and compassionate. "Yari, your cousin's bravery led us here. We'll honour his memory by pressing on and finding a way through this place." Torosh nods, his expression solemn. "Oryk was clearly a brave dwarf. We'll make sure he's not forgotten." "This place is filled with danger," says Angharad, as much to herself as to the others. "And Oryk's fate reminds us of the stakes. We need to stay focused and find a way to move forward. Yari, your knowledge and ability are invaluable to us." Yari takes another deep breath, nodding as he processes the words of his companions. "Thank you. Oryk wouldn't want me to give up. Let's find a way across this pool and continue our journey. I can retrieve his body on the way out." "I'll help you when that time comes," says Eoin. "For now, let's find a way to get to that door and uncover the secrets of this place." "First, I should perform a rite for Oryk," says Elwyn, her silver eyes finding Yari's in a silent request for permission. The dwarf grants it, with a saddened nod. Turn 24. Rest turn. The young cleric kneels at the edge of the pool, her black hair shining in the dying light of the lantern, which Torosh quietly fills with oil from a flask. She places her mace and shield neatly on the ground beside her, and clasps her hands together in a gesture of prayer. The others fall silent, bowing their heads somberly. With a soft, clear voice, Elwyn the Acolyte chants, "O mighty Orlog, the holy law, the cosmic riddle, and the divine mystery, hear now your neophyte daughter. We commune in this place of darkness, having found a fallen brother, Oryk, kinsman of Yari. Though his journey has ended in this world, we honour his prodigal spirit." Elwyn removes a small vial of holy water from her pouch and sprinkles a few drops into the pool, watching as they ripple across the surface. "By the cosmic covenant, may this brave dwarf's soul find fellowship among his ancestors. May the loom of light guide him in death, and may his memory guide us in life. May his determination inspire us, and his sacrifice strengthen our resolve." She then places her hands over her heart and bows her head, speaking softly. "Oric, though I did not know you in life, I venerate you in death. Your bravery and determination will be remembered." Raising her head, Elwyn completes the ritual with a final blessing in a confident voice, now clarion and proud. "May the divine order of law guide and protect us all." Turn 25. With renewed determination, the group continues to search for a way to bypass the deadly pool. During their inspection, the keen eyes of both barbarian and elf spot grey, coagulated shapes moving around near the stony bottom. "Care no north," swears Torosh. "There are dark, formless things swimming down there. 5 in total. I do not like the look of them. I suppose they're what claimed Oric." Angharad nods, her gaze following the shapes. "I see them too. They could be the source of the bubbles and the corrosive properties of the water. Grey oozes are known to be dangerous." "Let's see if we can find anything to help us," says Yari. "There must be something in this chamber, or nearby, that we can use to create a safe path." Angharad nods. "Let's split up and search the area. Be careful not to get too close to the water." The group splits up slightly, with each member searching the chamber and nearby areas for anything that can help them create a bridge or safe passage over the deadly pool. Turn 26. There is little in the chamber by way of flotsam with which to build a makeshift raft or causeway across the pool. Retrieving a torch from his pack, Torosh makes his way back to the main corridor to check Skeeks's parlour or the alchemy lab for more options. Just outside the glow of his torchlight, the warrior spots what seems to be a girl or young woman creeping westward down the corridor toward him. She wears leathers under a hooded cloak and is sneaking along as if to pass undetected. Despite the barbarian's burning firebrand, she doesn't seem to notice him. She traverses the checkered pattern safely and enters the door to the ruined library. Turn 27. Torosh alerts the others, and they choose to intercept the girl. They pass through the door in the southern wall of the alchemy lab to enter the library via its western portal. The door is still open from when the adventurers came through it the first time. Yari approaches first. The girl can be seen in the middle of the library. She seems to be crying. There's an idyllic light about her, though she bears neither lantern nor torch. Yari stops and signals the party to halt. "She's in the middle of the library," he whispers back to them, "and it looks like she's crying. There's something ghostly about her." After watching the girl for some time, Elwyn turns to the group. "I'll talk to her. Maybe I can offer some comfort or find out what she wants."
"Tyrannis," swears Torosh. "Talking rats wearing royal crowns, madmen imprisoned in mirrors, spectral lasses sobbing alone in abandoned libraries. What other devilry haunts these strange halls?"
Angharad frowns. "Far stranger devils still, I fear. Be careful, Elwyn."
"I'll go with Elwyn," says Yari, "but I'll stay in the shadows, just in case."
Elwyn takes a deep breath and walks forward, shield lowered and lantern raised. Yari moves silently in the shadows behind her. The rest of the group hangs back, tensed for any sudden changes. Turn 28. Elwyn speaks gently as she approaches the girl. "Hello there. We mean you no harm. Are you all right? Can we help you?" She tries to make her presence known in the least threatening way possible, hoping to establish some form of communication with the apparition. The girl does not appear to hear or see Elwyn. She dabs her eyes with the hem of her cloak and resumes the stealthy position that Torosh described. She then turns and creeps up to a large bookshelf at the eastern end of the northern wall. There, she looks around as if to make sure no one is watching, even though Elwyn is standing mere paces away with a glowing lantern. The girl makes a vague gesture at the bookcase, and then disappears into it as though it, or she, isn't there. Elwyn turns back to the group with wide silver eyes. She just vanished through that bookshelf. Turn 29. Yari carefully approaches the bookshelf where the girl disappeared. He begins inspecting it for any mechanisms or clues that might reveal a secret passage. He checks for loose stones, hidden levers, and any other indications that the bookshelf might be more than it appears. He quickly discovers that the bookshelf hangs on large iron hinges and is locked into place with a catch mechanism. Releasing the mechanism causes the bookshelf to swing open, revealing a large chamber 40 feet by 40 feet through the stone wall to the north. In each of the chamber's 4 corners is a stone plinth holding the silver statue of a girl playing a flute. There is a closed door in the eastern, western, and southern walls, in addition to the secret bookshelf door, and an open portal in the western wall. There are 3 large pits scattered about the room that are about 10 feet across, though the party cannot tell from their position how deep the pits are or what might be in them. The room is illuminated by the ceiling, about 20 feet overhead, which glows with a magical light. In the middle of the ceiling is an enormous, hairy spider about the size of a pony, wearing a silver collar. It sounds like the spider is singing a whimsical tune as its 8 eyes watch the apparition the party is following. The girl creeps into the middle of the room, where she draws her dagger, as if preparing to defend herself from an unseen assailant. She then issues a blood-curdling scream and begins dancing merrily about the chamber. The dance is so vigorous that she falls into one of the pits and disappears. The adventurers have little time to process this surreal experience before the enormous spider falls from the ceiling and wriggles towards Yari with fangs bared. Combat. Round 1. The dwarf drops his crossbow and draws his dagger, preparing to defend himself as he hustles backward toward his companions. Drawing his sword, Ioan leaps forward to intercept the monster before it can reach Yari, while Torosh circles around its flank. "This must be the spider Skeeks warned us about," shouts Elwyn as she moves forward to support Ioan. Seeing the spider's collar, Angharad begins chanting the words necessary to cast Detect Magic. The spider reaches Yari just as Ioan and Torosh reach the spider. Huge fangs lash out at the dwarf, but he is able to deflect them with his dagger. In quick, crab-like motions, the monster shifts sideways to avoid blows from barbarian and knight. Angharad's spell causes both the spider's silver collar and the ceiling above to glow blue in her mind's eye. "There must be a continual light spell on the ceiling," she reasons aloud. "Its collar may be why Skeeks said it can't leave the room. We should retreat if necessary." Combat. Round 2. Ioan swings his sword at the spider, but it deftly parries his strike with one of its legs. "Damn, it's quick," he shouts. "Watch its movements." With a powerful, well-aimed slash, Torosh severs one of the spider's legs. The creature lets out a mournful, lamenting tune. "It's hurt," shouts Angharad, noticing the change in the monster's song and behaviour. "It's wounded and wants to retreat. Stay cautious. It might try something desperate." The spider, now severely wounded and missing a leg, attempts a fighting withdrawal, backing up slowly toward the northern wall. It continues to face Torosh and Ioan, keeping its remaining legs ready to fend off any further attacks. "It's backing off," shouts Ioan. "Keep your guard up. Don't let it escape up the wall." As the spider reaches the northern wall, it begins to crawl backward, up the surface, its mournful song echoing in the chamber. Combat. Round 3. Yari retrieves his crossbow and aims it with steady hands at the retreating spider. "You're not getting away that easily." He releases the bolt, which flies true and strikes the horror squarely, causing it to let out a pained hiss. "Got it! Direct hit!" Watching the spider ascend beyond the reach of his sword, Ioan stands ready at the base of the wall. "Nice shot, Yari. Everyone, stay ready. It might come back down or try something desperate.
Great shot, Yuri, cheers Elwyn, moving closer to the dwarf.
Be ready to fire again if it makes a move.
Torosh sheathes his sword and draws a javelin, readying himself to hurl it at the monster. Angharad observes the situation closely, her emerald eyes tracking the spider's jerky mechanical movements.
It's wounded and desperate. It might try something reckless. Stay vigilant.
The spider, now bearing multiple wounds, continues to climb up the wall, trying to escape further harm. Its eerie canzonetta, once jubilant, is now a sorrowful requiem in A minor. Combat, Round 4. The spider makes a desperate dash toward a corner on the ceiling. Yuri quickly reloads his crossbow and takes another shot. The bolt flies wide, shattering against the wall. With a savage grunt, the barbarian hurls his javelin at the spider. The missile embeds itself deep into the creature.
"Take that, demon!"
roars the chestnut-haired warrior. The spider's blood begins to drip from the ceiling. Its baleful dirge again transforms into a discordant cacophony as it wails like an out-of-tune orchestra playing its final notes on the deck of a doomed ship.
"It's losing strength,"
shouts Eoin, with shield raised.
"Be ready to strike if it comes back down."
Elwyn moves closer still to Yuri, ready to defend him with her shield.
"Great throw, Torosh!"
she cheers. Angharad observes the scene with a mix of fascination and caution.
"It sings a death song. We've almost got it."
The spider, now severely wounded and bleeding profusely, continues its frantic attempt to escape. Combat, Round 5. Trapped in the corner of its lair, the bleeding horror gathers itself for a frenzied leap at Torosh. Eoin jumps in front of the barbarian with his shield raised, hoping to absorb the impact. Yuri steadies his crossbow and aims carefully as the monster leaps. He releases the bolt with a confident flick of his finger. The bolt soars through the air, finding its mark perfectly between the middle pair of the spider's 8 eyes.
"Got you, you monstrous beast!"
The tortured racket abruptly stops as the bolt pierces the spider's brain. Its body, already in mid-launch, crashes to the floor and slides to a stop at Eoin's feet. The young knight steps back half a pace as the twitching mass skids to a halt before him.
"Excellent shot, Yuri. The beast is down."
"Incredible shot, Yuri!"
shouts Elwyn, dropping her mace and hugging the dwarf in a moment of undisguised joy.
"I'm glad that's over."
"Well done, Yuri," agrees Torosh, lowering his second javelin. "That was a perfect shot."
Turn 30. Rest turn. The adventurers gather around the still spasming monster as the tension in the room slowly dissipates. They take a few moments to catch their breath and collect themselves after the terrifying encounter. Turn 31. Yuri and Angharad examine the spider's collar. It is a plain silver neckband, just large enough to fit around the elf's slender waist, opened with a simple turn of a wingnut.
"Well, it's not trapped,"
says the dwarf as he removes the collar and shows it to Angharad. She nods, still watching it glow in her mind with the soft blue light of her detect magic spell.
"It's enchanted. Likely meant to keep the spider in this chamber. We can study it further once we're out of the dungeon. For now, let's keep it safe."
"It's worth a fair amount of gold by itself, enchantment or no enchantment," says Yuri, stowing the collar in his pack. Eoin peers into the nearest pit, his nose crinkling at the old scent of decay and the sight of rusty iron spikes at the bottom, some 15 feet down. Torosh examines the pit into which the apparition fell during her macabre dance.
"There's a skeleton down here,"
he calls out to the others.
"Looks like it belongs to the girl. She's wearing old, rotted clothes. There's also a dagger and some thieves' tools."
Elwyn approaches the edge of the pit, her expression sombre.
"Poor thing. Let's recover her tools and the dagger. They might tell us more about her."
Torosh nods and carefully climbs down into the pit, avoiding the spikes. He retrieves the tools and the dagger, then climbs back up, handing them to Yuri for inspection. The tools are rusted, but still serviceable, says the dwarf as he examines the items. They confirm she was a thief. The dagger is in poor condition, but it might still serve some purpose.
Turn 32. The third pit is like the other two, 15 feet deep and outfitted with spikes at the bottom. It reeks with the stench of death, but is otherwise empty. Angharad's gaze falls upon the silver statues on the plinths in each corner of the room. What about these statues? They're all girls playing flutes. We should study them closely. They might hold some significance or reveal a hidden clue. The group splits up to inspect the statues, each taking a corner of the room, while Elwyn says a silent prayer over the skeleton in the bottom of the northernmost pit. Yuri surveys the statue in the southwest corner, running his hands along the surface and checking for any hidden levers. Under it, he discovers a button that opens and closes the secret bookshelf door the party came through to enter the room. The adventurers reconvene in the centre of the chamber to discuss their findings.
These statues are worth a fortune, Yuri remarks. Each one of them could fetch around 250 gold pieces.
Eowyn looks at the statues, then back at Yuri.
That's quite a lot of gold, but they're also heavy and cumbersome to carry.
Torosh grins.
We can figure out a way to transport them later, on the way out.
Elwyn nods. Indeed, we need to keep our priorities straight. Let's collect them when we make our way out of this place. Turn 33. The group approaches the closed door in the southern wall, about 20 feet to the east of the secret door. Angharad listens at it, while Yuri searches for traps. Neither elf nor dwarf detects anything of concern. Turn 34. With a nod at the others, to ensure they're ready, Eowyn raises his shield and opens the door to reveal a room about 50 feet east to west and 30 feet north to south. The ceiling glows softly, like the one in the room the party is standing in now. The walls are painted in murals of strange creatures with radially symmetrical bodies and a large mouth at the top, surrounded by 3 long arms, interspersed with 3 eyes. The creatures are unearthing crystals in a mine of some sort. Scattered about the room are several pedal-operated machines for grinding, cutting, and polishing stone. A granite workbench occupies the centre, outfitted with a silver spinner, a small instrument used to weave metal. Yuri enters cautiously, his eyes scanning the surroundings for any immediate threats or hidden dangers. He gestures for the others to follow. Eowyn follows closely behind, shield raised and sword drawn.
This looks like a workshop of some sort, he says, eyeing the pedal-operated machines and workbench. Strange creatures, observes Torosh, surveying the murals with a furrowed brow. They look like nothing I have ever seen.
Angharad, her curiosity piqued, moves closer to examine the murals. I believe these creatures are called Zorns, she says, after studying them for a while. If I recall, they are natives of the plane of elemental earth. They are said to feed on precious metals and can swim through stone. Elwyn and Yuri approach the workbench. They count out 37 uncut gems of varying type lying scattered across it. What do you think they might be worth, Yuri? Asks Elwyn, dazzled by all the colours.
Uncut, mutters the thief, as he holds up a blue gem before one squinted eye. I'd wager between 60 and 100 gold pieces each. Torosh looks over with a low whistle. Aye, that'll be a good haul. Let's make sure they're secured.
Yuri turns his attention to the silver wheel.
This spinner is etched with symbols, but they're well beyond my ken. Angharad, can you identify them?
The magic user studies the wheel closely, her eyes narrowing as she tries unsuccessfully to decipher the arcane runes. Let's take it with us, she says with an intrigued smile. We can examine it later, along with the collar.
The devices civilized men build are beyond me, grumbles Torosh, with a shrug, as he inspects the pedal-operated machines. But it seems we might have found a workshop where Angharad's Zorns were mining and crafting.
The magic user gently places the silver spinner in her backpack. The others divide up the 37 gems into 4 lots of 9 stones each, with Yuri taking the extra gem. Turn 35. The party returns to the chamber of the singing spider. Ioan looks around at the various exits. There are several unexplored passages. Which one should we investigate next?
I suggest we start with the closed doors, says Angharad. They may contain important clues or treasures.
Yuri nods.
The door in the eastern wall is a good starting point. I'll check it for traps.
Turn 36. Rest turn. Yuri moves towards the closed door in the eastern wall, inspecting it for any traps, while Angharad presses her ear to it, listening for sounds from the other side. After neither detects any signs of danger, Ioan carefully opens it. Turn 37. The room beyond the door is about 40 feet north to south and 20 feet east to west. The ceiling glows with the same magical light as the spider's chamber and the gem-cutting room. There are murals in this room as well, depicting various genie-like figures crafting metals at a forge. A heap of coal is piled up next to a cold furnace in the northeastern corner of the room. Sundry racks and shelves line the walls on which are stored all manner of jeweller's tools, hammers, pliers, tongs, and files. An iron workbench occupies the centre of the room, with all sorts of treasures piled on top of it. Yuri examines the workbench, his brow furrowed in concentration.
Give me a moment to check for any traps before we touch anything.
Angharad moves towards the murals, her emerald eyes wide and glimmering with fascination. Turn 38. Yuri takes a step back from the workbench and looks at the others.
The bench looks safe. No traps that I can see.
The group gathers around, carefully sorting through the treasure. They count out a crystal crucible, 2 gold rings set with diamonds, 3 small gold ingots, 5 small silver ingots, and 2 small platinum ingots. Angharad examines the crucible, running her fingers gently over its smooth surface.
This is exquisite, she breathes. It could be used for magical or alchemical purposes.
Yuri takes a closer look at the ingots.
Gold, silver and platinum. These will fetch a high price.
Elwyn admires one of the golden rings set with a diamond.
The jeweller's tools here must have been used to create these treasures. Draxus was truly skilled.
Torosh, keeping watch by the door, glances over at the workbench.
A good haul. We'll need to distribute them among ourselves to carry them out.
Elwyn nods.
We should also make note of any magical properties they might have, she suggests. Angharad, can you detect any enchantments on them?
Angharad frowns.
I've already used my detect magic spell for the day, but we can identify them later.
She glances at the barbarian.
Torosh, as we agreed, you get my share of all non-magical treasure. I'll take the crystal crucible, unless there's objection.
Torosh nods.
Fair enough, Angharad. I'll take the gold and silver ingots then.
I'll take the platinum ingots, says Yuri. They're likely worth quite a bit. Elwyn returns her gaze to the diamond ring.
This ring is beautiful, she murmurs, modelling it on the tip of her finger. I'm happy to carry it.
Ioan nods. I'll take the other ring. They're marvellously crafted. Yuri glances up at the rings from his ingots. Aye, they're a matching set, he says absently, placing his treasure into his pack. Angharad and Torosh look up at the rings, then at Elwyn and Ioan, then quickly back down. Elwyn and Ioan both freeze as their faces flush the same bright shade of pink. Yuri exchanges a quick look with Angharad before bringing his hand up to his face, too late to cover his smile.
A matching set indeed,
grins Torosh. His hearty laugh spreads among his companions like a small brush fire. Ioan clears his throat, fighting to regain his composure.
Well, the rings are well crafted is all, he stammers between fits of giggling.
Elwyn, still blushing and now smiling despite herself, nods vigorously and refuses to look up. Indeed, says Angharad, with a quick wink at Yari. But it's nice to see some levity among us. Turn 39. With the treasure divided, the party returns to the spider's chamber. They approach the closed door in the western wall and wait while Yari examines it for traps. When he doesn't discover any, Ioan opens it. Turn 40. The chamber beyond the door is long and narrow, about 15 feet north to south, and 40 feet east to west. The ceiling glows with the same continual light magic as the other rooms in this area of the dungeon. Murals decorate these walls as well, depicting the sun and moon infusing various gems with solar and lunar emanations. A large silver circle is etched into the floor in the centre of the room. An oaken table lies beyond the circle, against the far wall. Myriad items rest atop it, though the adventurers can't make out what they are from where they now stand. 2 life-size statues of warriors in repose, armed with 2-handed swords, stand guard in the northwestern and southeastern corners of the chamber. The adventurers carefully enter the room, one by one, eyeing the statues and the silver circle warily. Suddenly, a pair of deep, powerful voices command, "Show us the seal of approval." The awful sound of twisting iron fills the chamber as the statues begin to move, each raising its 2-handed sword above its head. "Chutates!" curses Torosh, throwing an arm around Angharad's waist and moving her behind him. "Quickly, the medallion!" shouts Ioan, stepping between Elwyn and the nearest statue. "Show them the medallion Morlan gave us." Angharad swiftly retrieves the jade medallion with the letter D engraved on it. She steps around Torosh and in front of the group, holding it up for the statues to see. "This is the seal of approval," she announces in a commanding tone. There is a collective sigh of relief as both statues return to their positions of repose. "That was close," breathes Yari. "Angharad, do you think we're safe?" The elf stands frozen for a moment before relaxing. "I believe so, but let's be quick about our business here." The party cautiously advances toward the table against the western wall. Yari scans the stonework for traps, while Torosh watches the statues. Angharad holds the medallion tightly, ready to present it again if necessary. "This room is suffused with powerful magic," says the elf, as she carefully avoids the silver circle. "I can feel it in the air. This must be Draxus' enchantment workshop." On the table is a ring made of pure ruby, a slender book entitled Tome of Looping Enchantments, and an envelope with the passage, "To my grandson, Jessem," scrawled on it. "Let's see what we've got here," says Yari, carefully picking up the ring. "This ring is made entirely of ruby." "The manual is entitled Tome of Looping Enchantments," says Ioan, as he carefully picks up the book and hands it to Angharad. "Do you recognize it?" "I've heard of it," responds the magic user, taking the book carefully in her slender hands. "It's said to contain spells and techniques for creating continuous magical effects. This could be incredibly valuable." "And there's an envelope addressed to Jessem," says Elwyn. "We should take it back to him." The party carefully collects the items from the table. Angharad takes the Tome of Looping Enchantments for safekeeping and later study. Elwyn takes the envelope addressed to Jessem. Yari examines the ruby ring closely to determine if it might have any immediate magical properties or inscriptions before storing it in his belt pouch. With uneasy glances at the statues, the adventurers hastily leave the room and return to the spider's chamber, shutting the door behind them. Turn 41. All closed doors in the spider's chamber have been opened and explored, so the party decides to carefully move down the corridor in the middle of the western wall. It's about 10 feet wide and runs directly west into darkness beyond Yari's improvision and Elwyn's lantern light. About 20 feet west, there is a closed door in the northern wall. Turn 42. Rest turn. Yari and Angharad check the door for traps and sounds, while the others take a brief rest. Turn 43. Once both dwarf and elf are satisfied the door is safe, Eoin gently pushes it open to reveal a chamber about 40 feet squared. Piles of corroded metal, rods, sheets, and flakes lie scattered about the room. There is a ring of glowing purple salt, about 8 feet in diameter, in the centre of the flooring. In the middle of that ring is a small iron casket fastened to the floor with heavy iron chains and held shut with a large lock. Angharad carefully approaches the circle of salt and the casket, examining both for any magical properties, while Yari scans the room for any hidden mechanisms and traps. It is difficult to tell whether the circle glows from magic or the mineral properties of the salt, though Angharad feels magic here intuitively. When she nears the circle, she sees that there is a hand-scrawled note hanging on the lock that says, "Morlan, hands off, Draxus." "This definitely has a magical aura to it," Angharad says. "There's a note from Draxus to Morlan, warning him not to tamper with it." "The metal around here seems like scrap, nothing of immediate use or danger," says Yari, approaching the glowing circle. "To properly inspect the casket for traps, I'll need to step into the circle." Angharad frowns. "If you do, we'll need to pull you out quickly should anything go wrong. The circle could be a containment spell or a protective barrier."
"I'll be ready to pull Yari out if necessary," volunteers Torosh,
tossing the thief a length of rope to wrap about his waist.
"Yari, if you feel anything strange, get out immediately," warns Eoin.
The dwarf nods, fastening the rope about his waist with a bowline knot.
"I'll be careful."
Angharad mentally reviews her knowledge of containment spells, while Eoin and Torosh position themselves to react quickly. Elwyn offers a quick prayer for protection. When the others are ready, Yari steps cautiously into the glowing circle, approaching the casket to inspect the lock and chains for any traps or signs of danger. Turn 44. Yari enters the glowing circle, without apparent effect, and inspects the chest for traps.
"The lock is big and sturdy, but there don't seem to be any traps,"
says the dwarf, standing up and scratching his coal-black beard.
"The casket is solidly welded to the chains on the floor. This thing isn't going anywhere without some serious effort."
"Draxus wanted to make sure this casket stays put," observes Eoin. "We need to decide if we want to try opening it or leave it be."
"If it's that well protected, there could be something valuable or dangerous inside," says Torosh. "We should open it, but be prepared for anything."
"I'll stand ready to provide aid if anything happens," adds Elwyn. "Yari, do you feel confident in picking the lock?"
"I'll give it a try," says the dwarf, preparing his lockpicks. "Stay ready."
Turn 45. Yari begins to work on the lock, moving slowly and carefully, while the rest of the party stands ready for any surprises. After about 10 minutes, the thief sighs.
"This lock is beyond me. It's more intricate than any I've seen. I can't get it open."
"Maybe we can find a key or something elsewhere in the dungeon," offers Eoin.
"Or we could try breaking it open," adds Torosh. "It might be risky, but it's an option."
"This lock was designed by Draxus, so there's likely more to it than meets the eye," warns Angharad. "If we can't find a key, breaking it open may be our only choice, but let's exhaust other options first."
"Let's mark this place on a map and come back later if we find anything that might help us open it," says Yari. "For now, we should keep exploring."
Turn 46. The party marks the location of the casket on a rough map and leaves the room. They travel west down the corridor for another 60 feet before reaching a door on the northern side. There is also a small hole in the southern wall, apparently another one of the myriad tunnels used by the rats throughout the dungeon. Turn 47. Yari examines the door for traps as Elwyn refills her lantern with another flask of oil. After a nod from the dwarf and a glance at his companions, Eoin raises his shield and opens the door. Turn 48. Rest turn. The room beyond the door is about the same size as the chamber of the glowing circle, roughly 40 feet squared, and looks like an arcane study of some kind. Tapestries hang from the walls, depicting various astrological diagrams, indecipherable to everyone but Angharad. An embroidered chair rests at a massive wooden table carved with spider-like legs near the centre of the room. Candles of various colours stand on the table, along with other items the party can't discern from where they are. Near the eastern side of the room is a gargoyle-like lectern with a large book resting on it. "This looks like a study of some kind," says Eoin, leading the group into the room. "Angharad, do you recognise any of these diagrams?" "Sort of," replies the medium softly, as she studies the tapestries. "These are astrological diagrams. This room was likely used for some form of divination or astrological research." Turn 49. Inspecting the table, Yari discovers a single purple silk glove embroidered with silver rings around the fingers. The tapestries are apparent projections of astral bodies in various stages of movement relative to one another, though not even Angharad can tell exactly what they signify. Moving about with her lantern, Elwyn approaches the lectern and finds a large tome, bound in black and white fur, resting atop it. "There's a book on the lectern," she calls out, beckoning Angharad over. "It looks unusual." Yari carefully approaches the lectern and begins inspecting the area and the book for any hidden traps. Angharad moves closer to observe, curious about the tome's contents, while Eoin and Torosh remain vigilant, keeping an eye on the surroundings. Elwyn keeps the lantern steady, providing light for Yari's inspection. "No traps that I can see," says Yari, concluding his work. "It seems safe enough to handle." Turn 50. Angharad carefully picks up the book from the lectern, examining its cover and opening it to the first page to see what kind of text or illustrations it contains. Like the items she's collected so far, the elf believes the book to have magical properties. However, it will require some study, and maybe consultation, to figure out what exactly it does. A small wave of excitement rushes through the magic user. Her journey into the jeweler's sanctum seems to have been fruitful. "This book," she breathes. "I can feel its magic. It's powerful, but I'll need time to study it properly to uncover its secrets." She carefully places the book in her pack, a giddy smile on her face. "Our journey here is proving quite worthwhile." Yari nods. "We've done well so far. Let's keep up the cautious approach. There might be more treasures and more dangers ahead." "I'll hold on to the glove as well, absent objection," says Angharad. "It may be connected to the other magical items we found, and I can study them together once we leave this place." She places the glove in her pack, alongside the other magical items. "Sounds wise enough," agrees Eoin. "You're the expert on these things." "All right, let's keep moving," says Yari, packing up his tools. "We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still more to explore." Turn 51. The party returns to the corridor and follows it another 20 feet west before it dead ends. A door stands slightly ajar in the southern wall. Eoin gently pushes it open as Elwyn shines her lantern through the portal, revealing the chamber of the bubbling pool to the south. "It looks like we've come full circle," observes Yari. "This is the northern side of the chamber, where Oric met his end." Torosh looks about. "We've explored the whole place, then?" Eoin nods. "It appears so." The party decides to return to the chamber of the singing spider and discuss what to do next. Turn 52. The party returns to the spider's chamber and collects the 4 silver statues before gathering in the middle of the room. At the behest of Angharad, Eoin and Torosh shove the spider's grotesque corpse into the nearest pit. The adventurers then sit in a rough circle to discuss their next course of action. Yari, looking around the room and then at his companions, speaks first. "We've collected a good haul, but there are a few things we should discuss before we leave. First, there's Oric. His body is still in that pool,
and I need to find a way to bring him back for a proper burial.
Agreed, says Elwyn. We should also inform Jessem about what we found, especially the letter addressed to him. It might contain important information or instructions from his grandfather. There's also Skeeks, added Angharad. We made a truce with her and offered to bring her more treasures should she vacate the dungeon. We should decide whether to honour that offer or not.
Then there's the seer, says Torosh. We freed him from that mirror. He seemed quite mad and could be dangerous. We should consider what to do about him. Maybe Jessem can help him.
And there's the issue of the locked and chained iron casket in the room with the glowing purple salt, says Eoin. We couldn't open it, but it might contain something important. Do we leave it, or try to find a way to open it before we leave? Angharad's large green eyes are thoughtful. Perhaps there are some things in the jeweller's sanctum that are better left undisturbed. Turn 53. Amid these discussions, there comes a polite rapping sound from the still open bookshelf in the southern wall of the chamber. Turning, the group sees the dishevelled form of Morlan smiling at them from the threshold to the ruined library.
You did it! The red-haired man cries joyfully. You bypassed the stone guardians with the jade medallion!
Yari stands and regards the seer with one black eyebrow raised.
Morlan, what brings you here?
He asks, with more than a little wariness in his voice. The dishevelled magic user steps into the chamber, his eyes gleaming with excitement.
You found the enchantment workshop, didn't you?
He glances around at the others, grinning giddily.
Well done!
Eoin stands, his hand resting on his sword hilt. We did. But what are you doing here, Morlan? Do you need something from us? Morlan's smile falters slightly as he rubs his hands together.
I just wanted to see if you found anything of interest. Perhaps there's something that might help me remember more about this place, about myself.
Angharad looks at Morlan thoughtfully. We did find several magic items, but we have not had the time to study them yet. Elwyn stands up and steps forward, her silver eyes filled with empathy. Morlan, we're willing to help you, but you need to be honest with us. What do you hope to find here? Morlan grins. It's a wide, toothy caricature of a smile.
I'm just so elated to have been reunited with my spell book, and after all those ages trapped inside that mirror. Ah, well, it was time I could rest, at least.
His glimmering blue eyes fall on Angharad.
Rest is important to magic users, isn't it, Elf?
His smile is gone now. Angharad's emerald eyes narrow slightly, a hint of suspicion in her gaze. Yes, rest is indeed important for those who wield magic, she replies carefully, twisting slowly to her feet. Torosh, already standing, grumbles low in his chest. His barbaric distrust of magic is chilling his nerves.
What are you getting at, sorcerer? He growls. Speak, and be plain.
The seer eyes the barbarian as a safari-goer eyes a gorilla.
Well, I confess, I haven't been totally forthcoming to this point. Draxus did imprison me in that mirror all those ages ago. But it wasn't for clumsiness. It was for theft. Well, attempted theft.
The revelation hangs in the air for a moment while the adventurers exchange wary glances. Angharad, her suspicions confirmed, steps forward. I understand, she says, locking gazes with the seer. You gave us the jade medallion in hopes we'd brave the dangers of this place on your behalf. Yari looks at Angharad and then back at Morlan.
Aye, and complete a theft you started 7 decades ago.
Morlan grins.
And 7 decades is more than enough rest to memorize a couple of meagre spells from Morlan's marvellous magic.
His gaze returns to Angharad.
You recall those spells, don't you, elf? I believe you said they are not very powerful.
His fingers begin to move in arcane gestures.
Yes,
hisses Angharad, her emerald eyes flashing as she shouts to her companions.
He's casting sleep.
Combat, round 1. Eoin draws his sword and charges at Morlun, but, encumbered by his plate mail armour, he cannot reach the magic user in time. His world dims, and he feels himself tumbling headlong into slumber as his body crashes to the floor with a clattering metallic racket. Elwyn, sensing the urgency but not knowing what to do, raises her shield against Morlun's spell in as useless a gesture as one raising an umbrella against fog. Her shield becomes too heavy for her to hold, and in that instant she falls to the floor as unconsciousness overcomes her. Yari aims his crossbow at the seer, only to witness his sight picture blur beyond focus. He releases the bolt, but is only able to feel it fly wide as he yawns and crumples into slumber. Angharad, aware of the spell's effect but powerless to stop it, feels her consciousness slipping away. The last thing she sees is Morlun's triumphant grin. Torosh, his instincts ablaze with fear of magic, charges at Morlun like an enraged bull. His powerful legs propel him across the room, and he reaches the seer just as the seer's spell reaches its climax. The warrior has time to watch the blade of his sword flash in a wide arc before his vision fades into darkness. One by one, the adventurers succumb to the powerful magic of Morlun's sleep spell. Elwyn, Eoin, Torosh, Angharad and Yari all fall to the ground, their eyes closing as they drift into a deep, enchanted coma. Conclusion. Hall of the Rat Queen. Sometime later, the adventurers awaken one by one, rubbing their eyes and trying to blink reality into being. Then, sitting up in a panic, they look about and discover that they are in the ruined parlour that is the royal chamber of Skeeks, the self-proclaimed Queen of Rats. Their backpacks, sacks and satchels are all stacked with curious care against the wall and appear unmolested. There is a massive horde of giant rats writhing and squirming in the southeastern corner of the chamber. Queen Skeeks sits on her makeshift throne, gnawing furiously at some bloody meal in her golden bowl. As the adventurers come to, she looks up.
"Good morning,"
she says cheerfully. Eoin is the first to rise, his hand instinctively going to his sword hilt. What happened?" he asks no one in particular. How did we get here?" Elwyn, rubbing her temples, looks towards Skeeks.
Queen Skeeks, what happened to us? She asks, her voice groggy. How did we end up here?
Yari checks his crossbow, ensuring it's still in working order.
Morlun, he cast that spell.
Torosh stretches, his corded muscles stiff from the enforced rest.
Yes, the seer. I managed to close on him before the darkness took us, but I don't remember anything after that.
Angharad sits up and brushes back the tresses of her golden hair, focusing on Queen Skeeks.
Your Majesty, it seems you have saved us. Thank you.
Queen Skeeks chuckles.
Indeed, she says matter-of-factly. Your arrival was most curious. You were found unconscious, scattered about the chamber of that troublesome spider. My subjects dragged you here for safekeeping. They worked up quite an appetite.
The Rat Queen gestures to the horde of giant rats piled upon a human-sized mass in the southeastern corner of her lair. The sounds of gnawing and chewing are horrendous.
As for your seer friend, well, they seem to find him very palatable.
The adventurers collectively retch.
They're,
gasps Elwyn, doubling over and covering her mouth.
They're eating Morlun.
Well, part of him,
says Skeeks, before gnawing once again on the bloody object in her bowl. gags Eoin, at once gesturing at the bowl and looking away. Is that... He is unable to complete his question. Queen Skeeks looks up from her meal and daintily pulls a hank of long red hair from her teeth.
Oh, yes, though I can assure you it was not attached to the rest of him when we found you.
Logos, swears Torosh. It seems I struck true, even as we were overcome by his magic.
After taking some time to collect themselves and their possessions, the party convenes in a quiet circle. We should honour our agreement with Queen Skeeks, suggests Elwyn. Let's offer some of the treasure we found. Yari nods. Aye, though we should keep enough for ourselves and Jessam. How about we give her a mix of gold and silver ingots, along with a few of the uncut gems?
One of the platinum ingots is more than enough, protests Torosh. Or one of the rings.
Eoin looks down at his ring. Yes, the rings are valuable, to be sure. His voice trails off. Elwyn glances at Eoin, then to her own ring. Though they might have a significance we haven't discovered yet, she says softly. Angharad notices the subtle exchange between the cleric and the squire. There's more to these rings than their material value, isn't there? She asks, smiling. They're a matching set, after all. Elwyn nods, her silver eyes reflecting the light. Yes, there's something about them that makes me want to hold on to mine a bit longer. Torosh's expression softens with understanding. Treasures aren't always gold and gems, he admits with a smile.
They can be reminders of what we've endured and accomplished. Let's offer Skeeks some of the gems instead.
The gems alone are worth quite a bit, agrees Yari. The party elects to give Skeeks 9 gems, 2 each from Elwyn, Eoin, and Torosh, and 3 from Yari, along with 2 small silver ingots from Torosh. Queen Skeeks, as promised, says Elwyn with diplomatic grace, we offer you these treasures in gratitude for your assistance and to ensure continued peace between us. The Rat Queen is delighted with the offering. She is quite sure she can lead her subjects out of the dungeon with this much treasure. She wishes the party safe journeys. Gathering the remainder of their gear, the group heads north, out of the ruined parlour, and west toward the chamber of the pool, as the awful din of 100 feasting giant rats fades behind them. Tomb of Auric. Returning to the chamber of the pool, the party finds the grey oozes and Auric's body right where they left them. The adventurers can get reasonably close to the pool without attracting the attention of the oozes.
Auric is still down there, observes Yari quietly, peering over the edge of the pool. We'll need to retrieve his body without disturbing those oozes. Any ideas?
We could use a rope and grappling hook to try and pull him out, suggests Eoin. We just need to be careful not to touch the water. I have some rope in my pack, says Elwyn. If we can secure it properly, we might be able to hook Auric's body and pull him up.
Torosh sets down his hide shield and removes his pack. If you can hook him, I can haul him up, volunteers the warrior.
Angharad eyes the monsters still swimming around at the bottom of the pool. I'll keep an eye on the oozes and let you know if they start to move towards us.
I'll handle the grappling hook, says Yari. Elwyn, pass me the rope.
The dwarf secures the rope to the hook and carefully lowers it into the pool, aiming to catch Auric's armour. With precise movements, he tries to latch onto the body without disturbing the water too much. The grey oozes begin to move toward the disturbance, just as the hook latches itself under Auric's partially destroyed armour. Thinking quickly, Angharad kicks the fallen dwarf's broken lantern into the pool. The diversion works. All 5 shapes propel themselves toward the sinking lantern. Angharad watches in horrid fascination as the lantern begins to dissolve in their midst, sending acrid gases bubbling to the surface.
Heave, Torosh, commands Yari.
The barbarian grabs the rope with his powerful hands and, muscles bulging, begins to haul Auric's body out of the pool. Eoin stands beside him, ready to assist if needed.
Keep an eye on the oozes. If they turn back, we need to act fast.
Just a bit more, Torosh, encourages Elwyn. You're doing great.
The rope creaks under the strain as Torosh pulls Oryx's body closer to the edge of the pool. Yari steadies the rope, making sure it doesn't slip. The fallen dwarf's armour scrapes against the stone as he is lifted from the murky depths. With a final mighty heave, Torosh pulls Oryx's body out of the pool and onto the stone floor. The adventurers quickly gather around, their expressions a mix of relief and sorrow. Yari kneels beside his cousin's lifeless form, gently closing Oryx's eyes.
Rest in peace, Oryx. We'll make sure you're properly honoured.
Ioan places a reassuring hand on Yari's arm.
We did it. Now, let's get him out of here.
Angharad, her gaze still on the oozes, speaks softly.
Let's move quickly before they lose interest in the lantern.
Elwyn and Ioan help Yari carefully remove the caustic metal from the fallen dwarf's body and wrap him in his cousin's cloak.
Torosh, can you carry him? Asks Elwyn.
With a soft grunt, Torosh lifts Oryx's body with care, cradling it in his strong arms.
Let's go.
Jessem's cellar. The party makes its way back through the dungeon without incident, and is greeted in the cellar by Jessem, who looks relieved to see them alive.
Norns be praised,
he sighs.
I thought that cursed dungeon had become your tomb. With a look at the body Torosh is carrying, he bows his head. I see you found poor old Oryx.
We did, Jessem, says Yari, in a voice both sad and soft. Elwyn places a gentle hand on the thief's shoulder, before handing Jessem the envelope she took from the enchantment workshop.
We found this. It's addressed to you.
Jessem takes the letter, eyes widening in surprise.
A letter from my grandfather? Thank you. This means more than you know.
The group recounts to Jessem their adventures in the jeweler's sanctum, including Skeeks's promise that she will be leading her rats out of the dungeon, the battle with the singing spider, the ghostly girl, and the story of Morlan. As they make their way out of the cellar to the main floor of the old mansion, Torosh pulls Angharad aside.
I think you forgot something down there, sorceress, he says with a sly grin.
Angharad raises a quizzical eyebrow.
Did I? And what might that be?
The barbarian hands her a book wrapped in a cloth.
I heard you say you didn't know how to cast the sleep spell, and I remembered it's in here.
Angharad's almond-shaped eyes widen in surprise as she unwraps the book.
Morlan's marvellous magic.
She regards Torosh with a rare grin.
You remembered that, did you? Thank you, Torosh. That spell is very useful, as we've seen firsthand.
The blue-eyed warrior laughs in a deep, husky guffaw.
Aye, just don't cast it on me. Once was enough.
Angharad responds with a light chuckle of her own.
Well, I appreciate it. Your attentiveness is unexpected, but welcome.
She offers the warrior an alluring wink.
This marks the second time you've given me the same gift, son of man.
Well, there'll not be a third,
laughs the warrior.
6 moons will pass before I shake off the bad luck of touching that cursed tome the first 2 times.
End of Adventure 1. The Jeweler's Sanctum.
Thanks so much again for joining us on Old School Epics. If you would like to try the Jeweler's Sanctum or play Old School Essentials, they're available at necroticgnome.com and exaltedfuneral.com. Here again, links to everything are down below. I hope you enjoyed listening to our solo play chronicle. If you did, please join us next time when our burgeoning player characters brave the marsh-shrouded mysteries of Nate Trem's Shrine of the Oozing Serpent. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe so you know when the chronicle is ready. You have to do both, I'm pretty sure. Until then, safe roads, my friends. And remember, there's no such thing as free loot in an old school dungeon.